So welcome everyone. So thank you for coming. I mean, it's the peak holiday season, so I wasn't expecting 100 people, but this is great, I think. Thank you so much for coming along. It's peak holiday season and the sun's out, but stay here now you're here. So I'm going to kick off today. What am I going to do? I'm going to welcome particularly Manjuvajra and Guhyaloka, who's there, for travelling quite a long distance to get here. But why have we organised this? That's the question. Why have we organised this? I'm going to talk about that first, and then we can talk about what we're going to do over the next 3 hours. So, after like years of hype, I saw it as hype anyway. Last year, I spent 10 weeks at Guhyaloka. But I was ordained at Urgyen Sangharakshita. And about 2 days after I was publicly ordained with 18 other guys, we were bundled into a coach, aeroplane, bus, Jeep four-wheel drive thing. Literally bundled in that case. It's me and another small guy. It's the two smallest guys in the cohort, bundled into the back. We got into the back of a four-wheel drive, like in the boot, and trundled up into this mythical place that I'd heard so much about, but didn't know, hadn't really seen much of. But I really wanted to go. I really wanted to be there. And I was feeling really ill. I'd had a fever all night, awake with a fever all night in my last night at Urgyen before we left early that morning. But I emerged that evening, this is in April 2024, just over a year ago. I emerged into this place, this landscape that, let's say it didn't disappoint. The landscape in the widest sense didn't disappoint. I fell in love with it straight away. And the 10 weeks that I spent there, I mean, as soon as we were shown around by a member of the amazing community at Guhyaloka who live in the forest, as soon as we were shown around, as soon as that started, I realised this is just here for one thing only, this place. It's totally dedicated to creating ideal conditions for people who have chosen to, and have shown that choosing, have chosen, acting out that choice to go for refuge more deeply to the three jewels. That's what the place is for, that's all it's for, is how it felt. It was beautiful when I first arrived. It was beautiful for the whole thing. It's absolutely beautiful. It was really surprising in many ways. It was so well organised. I felt it was so well organised. It's like the preparedness, I don't like that word, but I think it's the right word here. The organisational preparedness, how well they prepared for this 3-month, or slightly under 3 months course that we were on, was amazing. And the welcome from the community there and so on. So I just felt like, wow, I've landed. This is the place. Now I need to get on with some work or relaxing there or something like that, both of those. So yes, totally designed and intended, designed in some form of that word, design, set up and intended for one thing, as I say. And those ideal conditions, or potentially ideal conditions, have been the case since 1987, when the first ordinations were performed there in 1987 by Urgyen Sangharakshita. And since then, over 600 men have been ordained there. I'm just one of a very long line, and there's been lots of people since then who've been ordained there too. And I had to wait 8.5 years for this. It's pretty hard to get to. I mean, I mentioned all the kind of modes of transport to get there. It's quite hard to get to even when you get there, because it's rough tracks and limited resources, no external distractions. I mean, I found sort of some in my mind, but very hard to be externally distracted. So, yeah, I found it a bit of a bumpy internal ride, as well as external ride, as it were, there. I found it quite bumpy those 10 weeks, which I think is a good thing. But I love it. I loved it, and I felt very closely connected with the place. There's lots of little stories I could tell, but we're already overrunning a little bit, so I'll just tell one story, one very mini story. We'll tell two mini stories. One is, it's so experiential there, as you'll see some more of this morning. The first time we had a study group, a few days into that 10 weeks, 22 of us in our, including the team, in our sky blue robes, on this forest grove, framed by the mountain light on the mountain cliff face, and the pine forest, and the ordination stupa, sort of below us, sort of thing. I just had this kind of ecstatic feeling. And there's lots of other ecstatic feelings that I experienced there. Okay, another one, just the last one, is coming. I'm of a certain age, so I had to go for a pee during the night every night, almost every night. I slept so well there. Anyway, coming out of my hut, it's in my hut that I shared with another guy in the early hours one night, and there is the crispest, fullest, roundest moon that you could ever imagine, lighting up the forest, so bright and vivid, and so it's like this is the cleanest disk of white I've ever seen in my life. It's like unbelievably beautiful the way it lit the forest. Anyway, so I felt like it seems potential in that kind of clarity. I don't know how well that went. Others can judge that. But anyway, I'm going to skip the other stories. So I believe really strongly in the conditions that have been set out there at Guhyaloka for men like me who want to go for refuge to the Three Jewels and can spend 10 or preferably 12 weeks in a forest in Spain with no connection to the outside world. Much better chance for me to change having those conditions. And I think I've seen that in lots of other guys before I went. Sarvajit, Nayadipa, anyway, lots of men. But also, at the end of the course, so 10 weeks later, and I'd been through some ups and downs, we had a presentation by the community there of the plans that you'll see more of later today for redeveloping or improving the buildings there. We had a presentation and we walked around where's the X going to be, where's the Y going to be, what's going to happen here. I didn't need that presentation. I knew that Guhyaloka needed to be improved. Not just because the kitchen facilities, I survived, I don't know how I survived. The kitchen, I wasn't particularly impressed. Somehow we kept it clean and we survived. No one became ill. Anyway, but also, remember, I was ordained at Padmaloka, not at Guhyaloka. So I'd had that direct experience of Guhyaloka needs to be able to cope with more people because our course, which I was invited to by Artapriya, there wasn't going to be capacity for us and our preceptors. So private preceptors join ordinands normally at Guhyaloka for 2 weeks or something like that to ordain them. I didn't have that benefit. We were ordained at Padmaloka. I love Padmaloka. I feel very connected with Padmaloka. My preceptor Triratna was there for me there. It was fantastic, actually. But other guys who are ordained there, up to then at least, get ordained there. So, in a way, that tells me that, as well as all the fantastic experience I've had there, we need to support the plans. I need to support the plans to to improve things there that Jyotika is going to tell us about later. Right. So what are we going to do for that's my intro really. What are we going to do for the next 2.5 hours? I'm going to hand over in a minute to Vardhaka. It was Vardhaka who encouraged me to invite Manjuvajra to this event. So Vardhaka's in a much better position to introduce Manjuvajra than I am. But Manjuvajra, I first came across you in the early part of this year at the area Order Weekend at Adhisthana, where you gave a talk about your life in the order. So when Vardhaka mentioned your name, I thought, yes, please. So such a fantastic experience to hear that talk, experience that story of yours. So we're in for a treat for that. Then he's going to hand over back to me, and I'm going to hand over to Matthew, and I think I saw Ted arrive, yay, who are going to talk about their experience earlier this year. Or I should say, the format is past, present, and future. I'm not saying that Manjuvajra just is in the past, but that's more the focus of your talk, I guess, is going to be the past, because you've lived there for so long. Matthew and Ted is the present, early this year. And Jyotika is sort of the future, in a way. Matthew and Ted were amongst a group of young men from Cambridge, led by Artisiddhi and Shubhanaga, who sadly can't be here today, on a working retreat at Guhyaloka. So they've got some experiences to share from that, which I'm looking forward to. Then we're going to have a quick tea break. We're all going to come back to hear Jyotika show many more pictures of the place and talk about the plans. And then we can share some lunch, if you've brought any lunch, or if you want to stay for lunch. Okay. And Vardhaka I first came across in 2014. I'm going to introduce you, Vardhaka, sorry. It's going to be a chain. I first came across Vardhaka in 2014. I was really new and green to Triratna. I didn't know what was going on, really. Although I had become a mitra. And I went to the international gathering at Adhisthana, a bit sceptical about Triratna in a way, in terms of I was very concerned about climate change and the climate emergency and all these sorts of things, all these interconnected crises that we're going through. Vardhaka gave a talk. I've never heard of him, but in this huge marquee in the garden at Adhisthana, which is only, I think, quite new then, newly set up, he gave a talk that made me realise, reassured me, convinced me that this weird bunch of Buddhists I've got myself involved in actually do care about all beings. They're not just meditating and pujaing. They actually care about all beings, and they have some kind of idea of what the cause and what the solution is, what to do in the light of human and other beings suffering. I was knocked out by his talk. As I told him, I approached him right at the end of the talk, don't know if you remember that. I approached you right at the end, like a little fanboy. I'd never heard of you, but anyway, I was so knocked out, and that was quite significant for me. So I'm going to hand over to Vardhaka. Just to say, we are filming this talk, this event, so that people can watch it all, or you can watch it again later.
Thank you, Dharmachanda. I'm really pleased to introduce my friend Manjuvajra. There's a lot I could say about Manjuvajra, but I want to highlight one particular thing about him. And that since his ordination by Sangharakshita in 1973, he has dedicated his life to the Dharma and to Triratna. From 1980 to 1997, he dedicated himself to working to establish Triratna in the United States, including finding and establishing the Urgyen Retreat Center in the northeast of the United States in 1984. For 17 years, he was the major influence in establishing Triratna in the United States. And then from 1997 to 2004, he lived at Padmaloka, where he worked as a member of the men's ordination team. And that's where we met. I was living there at the same time. and we became great friends. And I was incredibly proud at Guhyaloka in October 1999 to be the first person he privately ordained. He gave me the name Vadaka, which directly means the treasurer, because I was the treasurer at Padmaloka. It had another meaning, which was to cultivate qualities for the benefit of all, which is a more poetic meaning, but it was this lovely coincidence of a practical and an inspirational name. And then, after leaving Padmaloka, apart from the period 2010 to 2016, when he dedicated himself to looking after his father, since 2004, he has been basically dedicated to Guhyaloka, serving as chair and other positions, and being a vital general guiding presence at the retreat centre. Along the way, he's led several ordination retreats, and he helped to establish, well, he primarily himself helped to negotiate the buying of and the establishment of Uttaraloka, the small retreat facility for long, unstructured retreats, which sits very near to Guhyaloka. And since 2018, he's basically been the custodian of Uttaraloka. He calls himself the caretaker, but of course he's much more than the caretaker. He's the custodian of Uttaraloka, and still taking a very close interest in what's happening at Guhyaloka. So in the last 20 years, I don't think there's anyone else who has spent more time living in and close to Guhyaloka and being involved in the life of the Secret Valley than he has. So I'm sure he has plenty to tell us about Guhyaloka. So, my friend Manjuvajra.
Well, thank you for that very pleasant introduction. So I want to start right at the beginning. Guhyaloka was purchased in 1986, actually, by money that Bhante had been given for his 60th birthday. So he invested all of that money in Guhyaloka. And it was originally, sorry, I'm going to have to contradict you a bit, Dharma.
Okay.
Chanda. It has 5 purposes, not just one. So it was set up for 5 particular reasons. The first was, it was originally meant to be a winter retreat for Bhante himself. He was going to spend his winters there in the warmth of a Spanish winter. And when he was living there, he was going to be running small retreats for 4 or 5 people to come out to Guhyaloka and do some study with him for a week or 2. And in fact, there was a building that's now used for solitaries, Jnana Kadka, that was built for that particular purpose. So it's going to be a place for Bhante in the winter with small retreats where he would just go through a text with people. That never really worked because it was, in fact, the winters could sometimes be quite severe there. And so it didn't really work out for him in that way. The second purpose was the venue for ordination retreats. These had previously been held in rented accommodation in Tuscany, but Bhante wanted our own permanent place for the ordination of men, and later we got a place for the ordination of women as well. And he wanted it to be 4 months in a wild and challenging environment away from one's normal world. So the idea was that you'd leave your normal world, you go to something completely different. He had an idea actually about an ordination process that he mentioned to a few of us once. We were discussing what kind of process should be set up to ordain people into the Western Buddhist order, as it then was. And what he suggested was that people, the men, this is for men particularly, should be flown out to Brazil, taken up the Amazon and dropped in the jungle. If they got back alive, we'd ordain them. So I think that expressed a certain spirit of what he thought needed to happen. The men needed to be taken away entirely from their normal world and away for a period of time so that they could really experience themselves very deeply and what they were communicating them to. He wanted the length to be increased to 6 months, actually, from 4 months to 6 months. Unfortunately, Brexit rather kiboshed that, and it's now got pulled back to just under 3 months, which is very sad. The retreat centre itself was constructed very, very cheaply, and I mean cheaply. The Yeso huts, which passed by just now, were built from onion sacks filled with dirt and then piled upon each other. And these have only this year been taken, well, they haven't even been taken down actually, it's just that the onion sacks and the dirt have been removed and replaced by good solid concrete blocks. So this is the first stage of the development of Guhyaloka, is to not knock down and replace, which I'm really pleased about, but to rebuild these Yeso huts, which are very sort of characteristic of Guhyaloka. Anyway, yes, so they were built cheaply. Oh, the other buildings were built out of pallets with plastic stuck over them. And one of those pallet huts still exists. It's still used as a storage place, which isn't bad after what, how many years is that? I don't know, 40 years, something like that. So anyway, well-constructed pallet Yeso huts. But they do need to be replaced, they really do. And as I say, the Yeso huts have been replaced very well. So the third purpose of Guhyaloka was a location for a vihara. The vihara meant, in this case, a small community, 4 or 5, 6 people maybe, dedicated to spiritual practice. They would live there in huts, yurts and tents. So again, very, very kind of crudely accommodated. And they would stay there for many years. The men there at the beginning were discussing with Bhante, well, what should they do? What were going to be the rules of this vihara? How much meditation, how much study, how much puja, all of these sorts of things. And Bhante said, no, there's only one rule. The one rule is you don't leave. You stay here. Stay here all the time. So the people in the vihara there never left the place. Some people were there for 5, 6 years. And the idea being that you really went away, you really went forth from the world, and you really practiced and went more and more deeply into yourself, understood yourself, the workings of your mind and so on. The fourth purpose of Guhyaloka was to provide facilities for solitary retreats. To be like the vihara, but just by yourself, not actually in a community. And this would have been for shorter times. So it would be a month, 3 months, sometimes 6 months. But for shorter periods of time, people would go there for solitaries. So various huts were built, and later on we acquired another property further up the Guhyaloka Valley, which is very beautiful, very isolated, and that is sort of for longer 6 month solitaries. And the fifth reason was for the support community. There would be a community of men there who would live there and would support all of these other activities, would build the buildings and so on, provide the food, bring people in and out of the property and so on. And there has always been a support community there, usually of sort of 4, 5, 6 people mainly they used to be from Britain, but now since Brexit, there's very few Britons there because they are not allowed to go and live there. So we've got more Germans, we've got Venezuelans, we've got Spanish, and so on, Dutch, Belgium. So it's becoming very much an international community. Spanish is now the common language. For many, many years it was English, but in the last year it's gradually transformed over to Spanish. So that's the kind of the purpose, if you like, of Guhyaloka, those 5 things. Personal retreats for Bhante, which didn't work. Venue for the ordination retreats. Location for a vihara, which we don't actually have at the moment, but Uttaraloka is something of that. Facilities for solitary retreats, which we have very much and are very much used. And of course the support community, which is there and active. So now I was meant to say something about what Guhyaloka is like. It's very difficult to say what happens at Guhyaloka. It's a wild place. It's a bit dangerous. I mean, there are snakes, scorpions, there are wild pigs, although they're not dangerous. The rocks are the main danger. The sharp rocks. People fall over and hurt themselves. People fall off cliffs and hurt themselves. So this happens. So it's a dangerous place. It's a place where you go where there's no guarantee of all the kind of security and safety of home. Living is a bit more difficult. There can be big storms with enormous rainfalls. It can be really cold. You can feel quite miserable. Though, until recently, there was not much heating there. So it was a challenging place. It's beautiful though. When the sun comes out and it's blue and the sky and the weather is like nice 25, 26 degrees, just sort of lovely, gorgeous, lovely weather. So there's the beautiful mountains, there's all the cliffs, there's trees, there's animals, there's beautiful flowers in the spring, there's blue skies, and there's storms, which are kind of very exhilarating. So that's what the place is. Beautiful, wild, solitary, isolated. What happens when you go there happens internally. It's very much a place that stimulates the internal life, the inner life. And this is really what happens. So when you come back, I mean, I've just come back from 3 months at Uttaraloka, and people say, what happened? Well, nothing actually. We had some nice food, we went for a couple of walks, there was lots of goats and pigs, and but that's about it really. Nothing happens. In a way, it's incredibly boring, but that is really good. That means you think, okay, there's nothing else to do, I'm going to meditate. And so you really put your effort into your meditation and to communication with the other people there. When someone says, I love Guhyaloka, what they really mean is I love what I experience when I go to Guhyaloka. It's an inner experience. You can't really talk about it. Photos tell you something, but they don't tell you a lot. It's because it all happens inside. Quite often when people arrive, as we heard, they arrive, they've travelled, they've come to this place and they suddenly feel a kind of relaxation. I call it clunking down. What happens with me is after I've been through there for a few hours, I feel this kind of shudder. And all of a sudden, I feel quiet, relaxed, and I feel I'm in my place. I've come to my real home, which is a kind of inner state of tranquility. So what I thought I would do, please tell me when my time's getting short, is just sort of talk about a few of the things that I've experienced over the last 35 years in a way to give you perhaps a taste of what it can be like, what the inner experience of Guhyaloka is. I first went there in 1992, over 35 years ago. We decided to have a retreat. There was 5 old friends, Subhuti, Lokamitra, Nagabodhi, Devamitra, and myself. We decided to go there for a 10-week retreat. After 5 weeks, we were joined by another 7 or 8 people. And we were the kind, we were called the senior and responsible order members. So we were kind of order members who were taking leadership, I won't say roles, but we were leading the movement in different places and different areas. And we lived together at least the 5 of us lived together there for those 10 weeks. I was one of the happiest times of my life. Oh God, it actually moves me to think of it. It was a very happy time. I loved being there. And what happened was I got in touch with what I was really doing with my spiritual life. You know, I'd been in America for 12 years by that time, and I'd been very busy, you know, I mean, earning money to set up the centre, and then setting it up, and then again earning more money to put into the centre, building it all, organising retreats, travelling around doing classes and retreats, eventually all over the country. So it was a very active life. I was building the movement, I was building contacts, and sort of providing the kind of nuts and bolts, the bricks and the kind of the hardware of the movement. And although I kept in touch with my sort of inner motivation, when I went to Guhyaloka, I really found it again. I really found what it was that was moving me into the spiritual life. It was a deeper practice through meditation, through the ritual that we did, through study, and also through friendship, through really connecting again with my old friends. It was kind of back to basics. You know, inner experience of meditation, ritual, study, friendship. And I thought, no, this is what I'm interested in. This is what I want to do. So when I go back to the States, I'm not going to put so much in, well, I'm going to put as little energy as I can into creating the nuts and bolts. I'll let the newer people do that. You know, they can come along, they can do their apprenticeship, they can do their bit, they can help build the nuts and bolts. What I want to do is communicate the depth of my practice and build friendships. In other words, what I want to do is build the order, not so much the movement. I'll leave the movement to do its own stuff, but I want to build the order. I want to build those connections which make up the order. Now that to me was quite an insight and a clarification of what I wanted to do. So when I went back to the States, that's what I did. So from 93 onwards, I was much more concerned with building my personal relationships with people, encouraging people to meditate, study, those sorts of things, rather than sort of rushing around building the movement. So that's the first thing that Guhyaloka gave me, which was a really big thing. Yeah, and I needed something like Guhyaloka. I needed to go away from what I was doing in order to be able to see what I was doing. You know the old, tree and woods quotation. You can't see the wood for the trees or something. I can't remember what it is, but you know what I mean. It's sort of you need to go away in order to really understand what it is that's going on in your life, and that for me is really what Guhyaloka provides. In 1999, I went to support and then lead a number of 4-month ordination retreats. So I was on these retreats. And certain things came out of them. I'm just going to quickly note a few of those. The first was on the very first retreat I went on, where I ordained Vardaka. I reacted to the program. You know, we had this program, you get up, you meditate, you have breakfast, you do some study, you do some more meditation, lunch, afternoon, you have a little nap, more meditation, more meals, and you do puja in the evening. It was all packed with this, there wasn't a moment to myself anywhere. So I started to react against it. And I was saying to myself, well, okay, what do you want to do with your, what is it that you're missing? And I said to myself, well, I want to meditate, I want to study, I want to meet my friends, and then I suddenly realized, well, actually, that's exactly what the program was providing with me. And it was organizing it all for me in this incredible way. And all of a sudden, my whole attitude towards schedules on retreat changed. They were a gift, not an imposition. And I have to admit that these days I find it very difficult to meditate, study, and see my friends if I don't have that kind of schedule. now in Ledbury, I'm having to invent ways to recreate those sort of schedules for myself. Anyway, that was an insight, and again, that was something that came out of life at Guhyaloka. The next thing was that I was very happy there. I was just utterly delighted. Not only was I delighted and happy, I felt that I was doing something useful. I was helping men come into the order. A few years previously, when I'd been in, let's say soon after I was ordained, I went to live in Cornwall. And I had, again, 3 very, very happy years living in Cornwall. Beautiful place, by myself a lot of the time. I loved it. Then I went to America, and I was working really hard for 17 years. And quite frankly, I wasn't very happy, but I felt really fulfilled. I was doing something really valuable, and I felt that, and that was what kept me going. I'd left Cornwall, even though I was really happy there, because I didn't feel I was contributing anything to life, to the world. I was just sort of living a happy life, and that was great for me, but it didn't seem to benefit anyone else. Anyway, I remember talking to Bhante about this. I said, look, in Bhante, I was happy but unfulfilled. In America, I was fulfilled but unhappy. He said, well, maybe sometime you'll find somewhere where you're both happy and fulfilled. And sure enough, when I turned up at Guhyaloka, that's what I found. I found that everything was perfect there. So I've been incredibly grateful for that. I remember at one time in about the 2000s, early 2000s, I was on retreat, and a lot of people were questioning their relationship with Bhante for various reasons. I didn't have any questions about my relationship with him, but I thought, okay, I'll think about it. What does Bhante mean to me? What part does he play in my life? And I reflected on it quite deeply. And what I came to the conclusion in the end was that I was very happy with my life. And I think Bhante had actually given it to me. He'd given me the courage to follow my inspiration. I wouldn't have done it without him. And he'd given me support to do that. He'd given me support to deepen my spiritual experience, which is something I'd had before I met him, but I just didn't take it seriously. But he kind of, as it were, nurtured that spiritual side and enabled me to live it in my life in various ways. So my overall relationship to him was one of intense gratitude. Yeah, he'd given me my life. I was very happy with it. And what better gift can anyone ever give you? So I remember thinking that at Guhyaloka in the early 2000s. And again, one had the space to be able to do that. And also for me, the actual Guhyaloka experience of living there and how it satisfied me perfectly. One other little thing I'd say about that period. Spiritual life's a bit odd, isn't it? One day, walking back from the loo, I'd just been to the toilet, to the composting toilet. I was walking back to my hut, and I just thought, I don't actually want anything. And it was blissful. And I realized that not wanting anything was blissful. It wasn't that if you didn't want anything, you could be blissful. It was the very fact of not wanting anything, the experience of not wanting anything, of being free from any kind of grasping, any kind of reaching out, which was blissful itself. So that again was, an experience that I owed to that little path from the toilets down to my hut. And whenever I walk by there these days, I still think of that experience. Okay, in 2004, I moved into the community and became chairman. This was a conscious practice of renunciation. Previously, I'd been living at Padmaloka, and I'd still been going out to the States for 3-4 months a year. Now, I think there are various spiritual drives, let's say. There are various drives that move us in our spiritual life. And I think each of us has a particular one, a particular individual one. Now, it might be, for example, that you want to benefit all sentient beings, help all sentient beings in some way. So you could say that compassion is your main drive. It might be that you feel a bit grubby and you want to purify yourself. You want to experience spiritual purity. It might be that you want to understand the nature of reality. You want to penetrate into reality with rational thought. It might be, I'm trying to think of another one, but anyway, those three are at least. In my case, it was freedom. What I wanted was freedom. I wanted a profound sense of freedom. I'd had this when I was younger, when I used to go hiking with just a backpack, or when I was hitchhiking around Europe. I used to have this sort of just a sense of freedom. And I knew that freedom was what I wanted. Now, freedom has been I now know that freedom is what has driven me through the whole of my spiritual life, a desire for freedom. That's why I consider myself a disciple of Vajrayogini, because she in a way represents that blissful experience of freedom, of not being connected, attached to anything. Now, back in around 2000 or so, I kind of renounced women. Before 2000, women had played a really important part in my life. But around 2000, I won't go into details, Vodika told me not to, but I got dumped, basically, and I was really upset. But I also thought, actually, I'm kind of free. I can do what I want now. I don't have to phone, I don't have to write letters, I can just do whatever. So I experienced the freedom from something which I'd very much been strongly attached to. And I thought, no, I'll pursue this. I'll pursue this freedom. Now, going to Guhyaloka was a quite conscious attempt to pursue that. I knew that if I lived at Guhyaloka, I wasn't going to get myself a new lady friend. It wasn't going to happen. Some pretty nice goats up there, but nothing sort of that you'd sort of could satisfy that desire. So that was quite conscious, and I did that quite specifically. But there was another renunciation, which in fact, with me, was even deeper than that. And that was the attachment to status. When I'd been in the States, I was the main man. Even before I'd gone to the States, I was one of the senior and responsible order members. Yeah? When I was at Padmaloka, I had status. But going to Guhyaloka, I knew that I would gradually lose that status. I wouldn't be known as a kind of, as one of the speakers or one of the meditation teachers or someone that people would come and talk to about their spiritual life. I would lose all of that. And I really didn't want to lose it. It was definitely a renunciation. However, I decided I was going to do that. So those two big things, status and women, were what I was working on when I first went to Guhyaloka. And again, going away from the world, being up in the mountains, experiencing the bliss of freedom, that was a good replacement for both of those. And so again, it was Guhyaloka that provided me with the context in which I could experience that depth of spiritual experience, which would enable me to let go of those attachments. There's lesser attachments which Guhyaloka can help you free yourself of. Comfort, for example. I must admit, now that I live in Ledbury, I can turn on the taps and I can have as much water as I like, and I can have a hot shower whenever I want to. I can turn electricity on and off. I've got an internet connection. I can watch the TV. There's all of these comforts, which are okay, but they're not as good as Vajrayogini. They're not as good as freedom. But they're very seductive. They can. I really have to fight against that, getting absorbed into that. So dependence on water, electricity, heat, air conditioning, special food, all of those things you have to let go of when you go to Guhyaloka. Distracting entertainment. Yeah. TV, radio, films, newspapers, phones, computers, and nowadays, smartphones, all of those things. Social media, podcasts, news sites. None of those can you experience now at Guhyaloka. Now I have a confession here. When I was living there, I did introduce DVDs, and it was a mistake. Yeah, because DVDs are now part of the community ethos. Once a week they watch a DVD. I mean, that's decadence. That's the low life, crept into Guhyaloka. I am joking. So I think of Guhyaloka, Uttaraloka as a center specializing in renunciation. Yeah, it's a place where you go to let go of all of your habitual attachments, and what you discover is not, boredom, whatever, pain. What you discover is bliss, the freedom from all of that junk in your mind. It's really, really liberating. And frankly, I don't think you can do that to that degree anywhere else. Yeah, you really do need to go right away from your world in order to shake it all off. It's very hard to do if you're still engaged with worldly activities. That's my experience anyway. So in the 2000s, we ran a number of 3-month retreats for order members, and these proved to be very successful. So we decided that if possible, we would find somewhere where we could have longer retreats, 3 months, 6 months, a year, possibly even 3-year long retreats. And we started thinking about a place. Now, at the end of the 1999 ordination course, Vajrabandhu, Ratnaviewer and I walked down to where we got the taxis, the Refugio it's called. And we walked past these 2 houses, little huts. And we were saying to each other, wow, this would make a retreat center on the side of a mountain, very different from Guhyaloka, which is in a canyon, on the side of a mountain, looking over forest and mountains, nothing else. Anyway, it was a dream, and we just carried on, and as you do. Anyway, 11 years later, Vajrabandhu again was walking past there, and he noticed that one of the houses was for sale. So he came back to Guhyaloka, we went over, we had a look at it, and a week later we owned it. I've never spent so much money and so quickly. And anyway, we bought one of the little huts. A year later, the other little place became available, and we bought that as well. That took about 9 months to buy. But and then Bodhidharma, with a local builder, rebuilt, renovated, changed the whole place into making a retreat center for 5 people, up to 3 months at a time. And that we've had, anyway, I'll come back to that. No, I'll tell you about that now. So we got those, we built that up. There was 3 one-year retreats run there. But then we were finding it quite difficult to get people to do 1-year retreats. Bodhidharma had left. I went there to be caretaker, look after the place and so on. So I decided to run 2 3-month retreats a year instead of the 1-year month. And those have now been going since 2018. Every year there's been 2 retreats, but on a couple of them there's only been me there. So I've managed to get 3 months solitaries in. So, but that's what's happening at Uttaraloka. So those are kind of my experiences, really, of what Guhyaloka has meant to me. Everybody has their own. Just one quick. Sometimes it's not what you expect. I know one man who went out to Uttaraloka for 3 months, planning to think about becoming the chairman of a particular centre. And during the course of the retreat, he decided not to be chairman, but to leave and get married. Yeah? So, but the thing is, he went deeply into himself and he really figured out what he wanted to do. He wasn't just living out the theory, he was looking at what his actual experience was. And that, I think, is what Guhyaloka offers. It offers the opportunity to put the theory aside and just find out what you're actually experiencing spiritually. And that, of course, is incredibly valuable. Now, in 2018, there was a strong lobby developing, mainly from Padmaloka and the LBC, for improvements of the facilities at Guhyaloka. The men coming on the ordination course were getting older, unused to the rigours of Guhyaloka. And so, and I must say, against some resistance from some of us crusty old timers, the idea gradually took hold, and the idea of improving the facilities at Guhyaloka took hold. And gradually over the years there have been various plans and so on, and people have been talking about trying to raise money and so on. But now that's actually happening. The place, I think, is being improved but not spoiled. Yeah, it's still got its old magic, but it's just being made a bit better. Many years ago, I once tried to improve the ethos of, not the ethos, the kind of atmosphere of Guhyaloka by turning it into a more Zen-like quality, sort of neat and tidy and clean. But it didn't happen. It stayed messy and kind of grubby, and and then some people said to me, well, look, when people come here, what they want to do is they want to camp, but in stone tents. So the whole idea of keep it really simple, but also let the men come there and be boys. That's basically one of the things. Let them contact their boyish exuberance and enjoyability. So that is happening. The Yeso huts, as I've said, which were a characteristic, were going to be replaced with something more modern. But the architect that we've got, who's really good, he said, no, this is what you want here. We'll make them into real buildings instead of, onion sacks and dirt. And they've done a fantastic job, I must say. Really, really good. I'm really impressed with what's happened. And the fundraising is going ahead. Slowly, but it's going ahead sufficiently to enable things to be changed. There's more water there now, there's more electricity, and I think it's, but it's still the same Guhyaloka. So there is now a thriving community, as I said, an international community. Spanish is the community language. They run various retreats, and especially the ordination retreat, which is for up to 3 months each year. It enables men to come and live in that environment and experience themselves more deeply. That's all it does, nothing more than that. It's beautiful, really beautiful. It's peaceful. It's isolated. It's challenging, and it's spacious. And so the like-minded men come, they can enjoy each other, they can enjoy community, developing themselves on that sort of basis. So, let's hope Guhyaloka continues. It's essential, I think. I think it's an essential part of our movement, much more than anybody realizes. Without Guhyaloka, I think we'd descend into churches. Guhyaloka is the place where you can go to get a real taste of something which is very different from ordinary kind of Buddhist religious life.
Let's show your pictures.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's just run through them quickly.
Bear with me.
I'm aware of time.
Okay.
So this is Uttaraloka. The building you see on the right is the main building, and there's another one which you can just see right on the left. So, okay.
No, okay.
That's the main building. Shrine room on the top, kitchen, sitting room, and my room. And then there's another little place here with 2 bedrooms, and there are 2 huts which you can't see. This is the view from my room, from the sitting area, from the general kind of congregation area. Not a house, just trees and this 4,000 feet mountain. This is the shrine room. This is one of the huts. That's the shrine room. This is one of the neighbours. That's 3 other neighbours. That's the olives which we harvest every year. That's the figs which we eat in the summer.
That's it.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So there we are.
Just before we go on, could you just go to that picture of those weird hut things? I just don't understand what they are.
The huts.
The Yeso huts.
Is that what it is? Yeah, but I can't
Yeah.
even make sense of the shape.
Well, I have more
Struggling a
pictures.
little bit.
Later on, I have more pictures of them.
Oh,
I have a
right.
good few of them.
There we
Don't
are.
worry then.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the Yeso huts.
What is Yeso?
Oh, Yeso plaster.
Okay.
Because they're built out onion sacks filled with dirt and then covered with plaster. Yeah.
It's like the I call it gesso.
Gesso.
That you use when you prime your
Yeah.
canvases.
Oh, right, yeah.
And that left-hand one was mine. But they don't look like that anymore, as we'll see later. I'm just going to open another.
So inside this is attached.
Yeah, I can't even make sense of the shape of it.
There's some-
I'll wait for the other.
There's some good pictures.
Thank you, Manjuvajra. That's what it's all about. You know, it's something of the experiences that you can have at what's been set up at Guhyaloka that you can't have anywhere else, allegedly. Just one thing I didn't say earlier that I want to say now is that there's a chance for questions later. So before we have lunch at the end of this, time for questions or discussion. Okay. So talking of experiences, earlier this year I was quite envious to hear that Shivanagar and Artisiddhi were taking a bunch of young guys from the Cambridge Sangha to Guhyaloka on a working retreat. Envious because they're all in their 20s and 30s and I'm not, but also just to spend time there and contribute. It's a very attractive idea to me. So we're going to hear a bit about that now because 2 representatives of that group are going to talk to us now. So I'm very grateful to Ted and Matthew for giving their time to this today. Oh, Mike. Yeah, and can you share that mic between you?
Yeah, you can.
Good point. You have that one, Ted. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. I'm just going to pop a timer on. So firstly, thank you, Manjuvajra, for that. I think that was really actually great to sort of hear your experience, and I could sort of see the energy that you had for the place. So I really sort of appreciate your talk there. Myself and Ted are going to sort of split this talk into 2 sort of 10-minute talks or so, just about our experience of a working retreat that we went on in March. And basically, I'd like to sort of share my experience. And actually, just before I do, I'm going to introduce myself. So my name is Matthew. For those of you that don't know me, I turned up at the Buddhist Centre relatively recently, actually. So I've been part of the sort of Triratna community for about 1.5 years now. And I met Ted actually last July in Vajrasana. And I think one of the first things that I sort of really noticed about you is you made me feel very safe and sort of easy to talk to. You were a really pleasant sort of person to be around. And I was reading about the Eightfold Path, particularly around this idea of giving and giving of fearlessness. And I found that it's a really interesting idea that sort of it's an act of generosity, the way that you can make other people feel. And actually, yeah, this is something, a quality that I think you really possess. So you sort of really make other people feel safe and courageous. So thank you. So I was asked to go to Guhyaloka by Arthur Siddy sometime around late November, December last year. It took me far too long to make up my mind. I knew straight away I wanted to go. It found, wow, this really great experience. Took me a little while to actually sort of book my tickets and sort of follow through with that commitment. But I was just really excited to go away with seven other young men who I sort of knew, but I didn't know that closely. And I guess I had a sort of a sense of feeling a little bit sort of imposter syndrome type, sort of why me was the kind of feeling that was going around at the start of this sort of journey for me. And actually, if that's the way that I felt at the beginning of this trip, I'll sort of jump to the end for a moment and try and sort of compare how I felt at the end of this trip. Because the transition between sort of meeting 7 young men who we all sort of share something in common to the way that I felt at the end of this experience was completely polar opposite. I really felt like I went away with a group of lads and I came back with a group of brothers, really. I really felt a really, really strong connection to everybody on that trip. And actually this sense of connection, this sense of friendship, of brotherhood that was, I think, really epitomised by the puja that we did on the very, very last night. So I can tell you it was the 7th of March, it was a Friday, and it was the end of this trip, the end of this week of sort of intense meditation and working together and friendship. There are 8 of us in total from the community in Cambridge, and there were about 8 of the community members as well who were with us in the shrine room on this puja for this Friday. So there was no more than 16 people in this room, and we were sort of chanting the Padmasambhava mantra, and it felt like there was about 160 people in this room. The energy that was sort of the epitome of this connection that had gone from strangers to brothers is the energy that really was sort of powerful in that room. So some of the transition from sort of A to B, from this sort of journey that I'm trying to express a little bit, was facilitated by Arthur Siddy and Shubhanaga. One area of focus that we had was around the area of going deeper into meditation. Actually, one of the teachings that I really sort of resonated with, we were invited to view this challenge of going deeper through the lens of the vinyatas, or the sort of intensifiers, which Subhuti talks about in a book called Mind and Harmony, and I'm not going to delve too deep into that area, but actually I think I'd just like to sort of give you the shell of what I took away from that. So the teaching was to try and encourage us to go deeper into meditation in this sort of really, really, really special place. It was a way of going from sort of interest in an idea, interest in meditation, as sort of a nice thing to do, to sort of having this sort of resolve to really sort of committing to that idea, to really going, actually, okay, meditation is a great thing to do, but am I actually really committing to my meditation, so the breathing or whatever the object of focus was. And then we were invited to really come back to our bodily experiences. That is one of the things that Arthur Siddy sort of repeatedly brought up, was to just come back to our felt experience during this trip. And the whole goal of it was to help us transition from this busy life that we live to this sort of spiritual place, and to really sort of go deeper into this world, I guess. And through those sort of three models, that interest, that resolve, that sort of mindfulness, there was a lens, there was a way of sort of finding a sense of absorption. And what I mean by that was sort of, it was quite apparent to me that actually behind the mindfulness of breathing, behind the meditations, there was actually so much more. And what I got from that has stayed with me. So I've always appreciated this idea that I can give myself all the things that I need to fulfill me in life. That's always been a nice idea that I've held on to, but I've never quite had a felt sense of how I can go about that. I think through large parts of my life there've been a sense of lack, a sense of needing to fulfill me by grabbing something else, if you know. And this route to absorption, this route to sort of a sense of fulfillment that I was helped to sort of partly experience in this journey for me, really gave me quite a clear felt sense that actually, oh, it's all here. Do you know, I can give myself everything that I need. And that's particularly a teaching that stayed with me. And it follows on to sort of, after a sort of sense of absorption, you can develop sort of real insight into meditation and into the life that you're living, into your own mind, I think. And we were encouraged to view this through the Lakshanas. So we were sort of encouraged to look at this sort of practice through those sort of idea of suffering, through the idea of no self, and through the idea particularly of impermanence. And when I was reflecting on this, one of the things that I sort of really sort of wanted to ask myself is, if I had just discovered this teaching on a sort of Tuesday night in Cambridge, would it really have stayed with me the way that I experienced it in Guhyaloka? And I don't have an answer to that. I suspect it's probably not. I suspect that it was everything to do with those conditions that we had in that place, that really sort of penetrated, I guess, that for me. And in a way, I don't actually need to know the answer. I think instead, all I can do is sort of express gratitude for the teaching, for the teachers, for this community, and for the friendships and the bonds that I've sort of built through those times. So it's an attempt. There's a few threads there to explain what I got from this particular journey. I could talk so much more, but actually I just wanted to try and pick a few little things that felt important to me. I'm also sort of interested in your side of things, Ted, and I think it's a good opportunity for me to hand over to you.
And if it's okay, I might stand if
Please.
you don't mind. Yeah. So thanks, Matthew, and I suppose I want to thank Dharmachanda, oh there he is, for organising today's event and for asking me to come and share my experience, which was something I felt quite profound. My time at Guhyaloka, I suppose, compared to a standard ordination retreat, was quite short, but in that very short period of time, I felt something quite inspirational and quite transformative. By way of background, I'm a Mitra. I moved to the UK from Dublin back in 2021 to pursue postgraduate training in medicine. and I've been living in Cambridge for just over a year. I've been involved with Triratna since 2020, first at the Dublin Buddhist Centre, then in West London, and now in Cambridge. So back in October of last year, Artha Siddhi and Shubhanaga asked me if I'd like to go on a very different type of retreat in the Spanish mountains. And at the time, I was living in community, so I'd heard a lot about Guhyaloka. The order members I knew spoke about it with this kind of reverence. And the stories that they told evoked a certain sense of mythos and pilgrimage. So when I was asked, and I rarely do this, I said yes. And I said yes without even looking at my calendar. And I had plenty of reasons to look at my calendar because I'm engaged in a PhD, subject to academic assessments, even though I'm quite grey. And my first year report was due in April, 4 weeks before, or 4 weeks after the proposed retreat. But I took it that my heart had spoken. So I told myself a few lies. I reassured myself that I'd have the report written before I left, and then I'd be able to fully immerse myself in practice for that week. Flash forward to March 25. It's the morning of departure, and despite my best intentions, I still haven't really put much of a pen to paper. And at the airport, I go straight to the pret-a-manger. I find myself a seat and I start writing the introduction to that report. And even at this late stage, I'm actually wondering, should I go on this retreat? I considered calling it off and heading home because a week in the mountains meant losing a week of writing, and I really, really needed that week of writing. And of course, with that, a bit of cognitive dissonance and doubt starts to creep in, and I'm actually asking myself, what's the benefit of going on retreats anyway? But before I could answer that, I met the gang, and soon after we were on a flight bound for Malaga. In my opinion, there are few things in this world that are less spiritual than a pret-a-manger at Stansted Airport and a Ryanair flight, yet that's how this retreat started. When we landed in Malaga, the nice warm airport smell put me in mind of cold drinks and sunburn and karaoke, but that wasn't our destination. We took a train along the suburbanised, industrialised coast and then a taxi up into the mountains. And the higher we climbed, the quieter it became, and civilization seemed to slip away, and the clouds thickened. And even though we'd arrived in geopolitical Spain earlier that day, it now felt like we'd entered another realm, or we were entering another realm. The last leg of the journey from El Refugio to the retreat centre was in old pickup trucks, which I quite liked, driven by members of the community. We had to forego the traditional hike because the sun was low in the sky, there was a bit of rain, and we were already late for dinner. My first impression of Guhyaloka was just how elemental it was. There's little shelter, little conventional comfort. We're a lot of millennials. I don't think there is any Gen Zer there, but anyway. March time warmth comes from jumpers and blankets, butane gas heaters and burning logs. Darkness when it falls is near absolute, and you learn to navigate the world with the head torch. The mornings in the shrine room are beautiful, and they sound like wind and birdsong. And after the rain, you get this wonderful smell of wild rosemary and pine. Many of us remarked that we had become intensely aware of our bodies, hot and cold, wet and dry, and you can't help but feel awe for the community of men who are Triratna Buddhists, who live there year-round, because while this place is very beautiful and peaceful, it's not forgiving. This was a working retreat, and the thing that surprised me most was the work. I was assigned to split wood and move logs with Matthew, and truthfully and perhaps selfishly, I initially saw the work as just a necessary condition of being on retreat at Guhyaloka rather than something that could be a meaningful spiritual practice. But Artha Siddhi encouraged us to try and see it differently, to notice our habits of mind, and to treat the work as an act of generosity. I do remember that one morning myself and Matthew were wrestling with a particularly stubborn knotted stump, and Matthew had the axe poised over his head, and he asked Vajranatha, one of the community members, if it was all right to contemplate the fourth person of the Metabhavna while hacking at a piece of wood. To which Vajranatha came back as quick as a flash and said, only if you're thinking about how warm they'll be in front of the fire. It was very interesting to see my habits of mind, skillful and unskillful, the things that I bring to my Monday to Friday 9 to 5, emerge while splitting wood on the side of a Spanish mountain. For those of you who don't know Matthew, he's a man with many fine qualities and skills, including splitting wood and lifting heavy things for fun. As to his innate lumberjack ability, I'll admit to a certain amount of professional jealousy, but over the week that transformed into genuine mudita. I felt my faith and my Shraddha in community and in Sangha deepen during this retreat. As a group, we meditated together, worked together, ate together, studied together, and in the evenings before puja, we shared our life stories. And in telling those life stories, a certain harmony emerged. A mutual respect and a trust grew between us, making it possible to practice honestly and deeply. It felt with each passing day that our energies were becoming aligned. There was seriousness in our practice, but there was also a lot of fun, and I feel like the sound of the meal times was just constant laughter. On the final day, we entered silence after a ritual by the stupa, and there in that stillness, I felt an upwelling of reverence. So I felt reverence for Guhyaloka, for the community, for the order, and for Sangharakshita. And the mountain, which all week had been quite austere and mist-draped, had taken on a kind of holiness. I also felt reverence for my fellow retreatants, Artha Siddhi, Alan, Chris, Luke, Matthew, Ryan, and Shubhanaga. I felt privileged to witness their individuality, to share in their pursuit of wisdom and compassion. And I marveled kind of endlessly all week at the unlikely conditions that had brought us all to this point, this intersection of our lives on the side of a Spanish mountain. And in getting to know them, I felt like I glimpsed something of the Avalokiteshvara archetype. I felt true spiritual community and a sense of interconnectedness that crescendoed into that final puja. It was very hard to leave. I'd loved the stripped back nature of life up there, but that didn't stop me from ordering a barista-made coffee the moment we were back at sea level. And then I did something you're probably not supposed to do after a retreat. I went straight to work and did an on-call shift in London the very next day. And when I was sitting on the Northern Line, the same question that had plagued me in Pret a week earlier came back. What is the actual real-world benefit of a retreat or of the Dharma? Had I just done something to make me feel good about myself temporarily? But during that shift, I noticed people relating to me differently, and I've experienced this before post-retreat. I felt more present, more attuned to others. All too often in a busy hospital, you're already in the next room before you've really been in the one you're in. As people can sense your anger and fear without it being spoken, people can also sense compassion and joy. And that presence makes a real difference to a person who is facing existential uncertainty or nearing the end of their life. So now I can't give you New England Journal of Medicine worthy evidence to prove that the Dharma makes you a better clinician, but I can share my lived experience. My work that day, my work day post Guhyaloka served to remind me of how the Dharma has transformed my life in the past 5 years. And it also reminded me that our movement needs places of pilgrimage like Guhyaloka, places where the community and the teaching are very much alive, so that more and more people, like me and like Matthew, can find the inspiration to bring the Dharma back out into the world. Thank you.
Wow, thank you guys. That was, I'm so glad we asked you to speak and to share something of your experiences. It's brilliant, fascinating, and actually quite emotional. Well, I don't have a mic, so hopefully that's picked up. You'll notice, thanks Matthew, you'll notice Ted made a list of the names of the other guys. Could you make that list again?
Yeah, I can.
Of the people who you were with? I'm going to stand over here.
So we can point at them.
Yeah, the pictures, of course. Yeah. Well, they're going to move on. But.
I hope I remember the names.
Yeah.
Ryan, Arthur City, Ted, Matthew, Shubhanaga, Chris, Alan, and Luke.
Yeah. Good timing, that slide, wasn't it?
And, yeah.
It's Alan.
There's Alan.
Yeah. Great. And you mentioned the treat you gave yourselves at the end of the retreat. So you'll notice on the little slides I had earlier that I was supposed to be showing while I was talking, but I showed them to distract you during Manjuvajra's talk, that there was a photo of a vegan Magnum and a very strong-looking coffee. That wasn't at Guhyaloka. That was the first thing I wanted when we left our 10 weeks at Guhyaloka. We went down to the coast on our way to the airport, straight for the Magnum ice cream, which is a nice segue, that's the intention anyway, to have a quick cup of tea and a biscuit and come back in, say, 10-15 minutes, where Jyotika is going to give us much more information about Guhyaloka, the way it is now, what's being done, with lots of pictures. And one other thing I was going to say was, you'll notice in all of the pictures we're showing today, we're not showing you the really esoteric, secret bits of Guhyaloka. I vetted all of the presentations, because when I went there, I didn't know what the stupa looked like, or the stupas, look like, inside or out, or the shrine room. So we've not shown any pictures like that. That's for people to discover. I'm looking at some GFI mitras in front of me, when they or if they go there. So yeah. Okay, enjoy a cup of tea and come back in 10 or 15 minutes. Click that. Do you want to do it? Click on your shirt. Nice shirt. Okay.
Okay, so welcome back. So my name is Jyotika, and I am working for Guhyaloka for the Ages project. That's the name of our fundraising project, Guhyaloka for the Ages. Our idea is that Guhyaloka, we hope, will be part of our community for generations, hundreds of years. So up until now, about 700 men have been ordained at Guhyaloka. And hopefully in time that will become thousands and thousands. Yeah? So we're taking very much a long-term view. Maybe we will be reborn and get ordained again for those of us who have been ordained in Guhyaloka. Manjuvajra in a different form will be the caretaker again at Uttaraloka, an expanded Uttaraloka. Yeah? And there will be a college and a university with students, and it'll become the Nalanda of the West. Yeah. So that is our view, our perspective. It's a long term. So Guhyaloka for the Ages. That's where we came up with the name. And with myself and Padma Sagra, who lives in Berlin, we've been fundraising. And in close working relationship with Achla Deva, who's the chair. So I have a number of slides I thought I could take you through, and as we go I can explain some things. We have discovered we don't have a speaker, and there is a little video, promo video, intro video that I was hoping to show. We will try to play it, but if the sound isn't good enough, we'll just have to abort. Okay? So this is just the view of the valley as a whole. I had to take hand gliding lessons to do this, but you know, that's Triratna. You end up developing all sorts of skills. So yeah, we got a guy who just had a drone and took some footage. So that's the valley as a whole. This is the kind of retreat center area. So that is the kitchen dining block. That's the shrine room, and then there's just accommodation dotted around. I'm not tall enough to point around, but that just gives you a bird's eye view of the retreat center itself. Just some views. That's some of the community with Yashadeva. Yashadeva is the president. They are off on a walk. This is the winter time. Sometimes it does snow. And this is the Yeso huts. Again, some views. Oh yeah, that's much better. Yeah, thank you. So this is the first ordination, so Bhante. And we can't figure out exactly. There's Vasantra. Some of you know Vasantra. There's quite a few. Kula Mitra. Attila is there. That's Attila. Artha Darshan. He died in Guhyaloka jogging. He lived in the Vihara. So there was we can't exactly. What?
Artha Priya is there, next to Artha Darshan.
Oh, right, there, yeah. Artha Priya, yeah, of course. So there was either 15 or 17 men were ordained, and that was in 1987. So that's the very first ordination retreat to take place at Guhyaloka. There's Bhante in his yellow robes. So that's Suvajra. This is, so Bhante handed on. Probably, I think it was the late 80s, early 90s. He started handing on to Suvajra, Subhuti, Kamala Sheila to do ordinations. So that's Suvajra ordaining somebody in the shrine room. There's Artha Priya there. I don't know who he's ordaining. Does anybody know?
Sanghadara? Sanghadara?
Not Sanghadara, no. That's just captures the spirit of the place in the earlier days. So that's Surata and Suvajra. They obviously did some kind of a ritual and dressed, made headdresses. Yeah.
They look like they're Greek gods.
Yeah, Greek gods, yeah. So that was Bhante, one of his last visits out there. And there's Manjuvajra, actually. That was, do you know when that was? No. But it would have been, it was probably the noughties.
There's Padmavajra.
Padmavajra, Sadaloka, Surta, Ratnaketu.
2006, something like that.
2006, okay. Just some of the random photos, Maitreya Bandhu Surta, Amalavajra, Manjuvajra, Padmavajra. Again, some of the ordinations that have taken place. Satyaraja there, yeah. That's the most recent ordination from June, July of this year. And then, so within the valley, Manjuvajra spoke about it. One of the purposes is to have solitary retreats. So these are some of the solitary retreat huts. This is Almendra.
Jnanakadka. Oh no, that's
No.
no, it's Jnanakadka.
Jnanakadka, okay. Is that the very solitary one, isolated one? Jnanakadka? No. Oh, okay.
That's the very solitary one.
What's that called?
Arthasarana.
Arthasarana.
Used to be called the teacher's place.
That's right.
It's green.
And Dartsendo. And this, so we've got some pictures. This is Uttaraloka. The view from Uttaraloka. Uttaraloka down there. We've seen this picture already, I think.
They're almond trees.
Almond trees.
Almond trees, yeah. The shrine room. The shrine room.
The olive hut.
The olive hut.
Next to a very old olive tree.
Ah. Again, the shrine room. Really spectacular, yeah. So this is the current community. And they all speak Spanish, except for Dominique at the end, who's just arrived from Berlin. But yes, generally, there's a lot of Spanish spoken now. I've been up twice in the last 18 months, and there's a lot of Spanish spoken. So this is I'm delving a little into the past. So this was at the retreat centre down at the community house down below. This is the garage, the workshop that was being built. So this is the late 80s. And this is the architect on the left and the builder who is South American builder on the right, Josef.
Other way around.
Is it?
On the left is Joseph.
On the left, sorry, and on the right is the architect. Yeah, okay, sorry, yeah.
That's this year.
That's this year, yeah. So that's them looking at the Yeso huts. Oh, now this is me in our video. Let's see if we can hear this. Hello there. You've tuned in at the right time because I'm about to tell a story. Once there was a man who was lost in the world. He was a sensitive soul, and the world seemed so full of hatred and greed and fear, and he couldn't live with all of this anymore. He longed to find a spiritual practice, but he didn't know where to begin. Then, one night, he fell asleep. And when he slept, he had a dream. And in the dream, he found himself high in the mountains of southern Spain. He was in a valley covered in pine forest. He'd never been there before. The atmosphere of the place was mysterious, yet he felt very comfortable there. No one seemed to be around. It was dawn. He stood on a rock and felt the rising sun on his face, and then began to walk. Soon he came to a stupa, which had engraved on it in Spanish, "Cherish the doctrine, live united, radiate love." Then he saw beside the stupa a man was standing watching him. This man had an aura, he glowed, was almost golden. And the hero of our tale realized this wasn't just any man, this was an enlightened being. So he went to him and asked him about the place and where he was. And the enlightened one said he was in Guhyaloka. It was a place dedicated to Buddhist practice and where men get ordained into the Triratna Buddhist order. The hero of our tale felt such joy at hearing this and realized that the path he'd been looking for all along was the Buddhist path, and that one day he too would like to join the order. He expressed this out loud, and the enlightened being in his dream smiled encouragingly, but said that Guhyaloka was facing problems at that moment, and it badly needed new buildings and renovation work. Then he took him by the arm and walked him to a small building, and told him to go inside, that there were men there who would tell him of how Guhyaloka had affected their lives.
One of the best memories I've got from Guhyaloka is waking up one morning quite early at dawn really, and I came out of the hut to find the sky purple, blue, pinkish at this dawn, very deep blue sky with tinges of pink and purple, and the huge full moon, completely bright yellow. And gradually, as more guys woke up, more people joining us in silence, and us all sitting in silence until everyone pretty much was there, just mesmerized by the sights of the valley and these incredible colors in the full moon.
I just love going to Guhyaloka for solitaries, and it just feels like this place where I can keep on returning to a kind of undercurrent of depth in my life. And that's something that, in a way, I've been building up there for years, but beyond me, it's just something that's been there, that's been deepening for a long time.
Because I do believe that Guhyaloka is one of those important places, of those mystical places, those places of depth and real transformation.
I know that Guhyaloka is getting old, and Guhyaloka needs a little bit of help. The place is getting too small for the number of people that we want to host for ordination retreats, and that has been a problem and a hindrance for people to get ordained, and that's a real issue. Also, well, it needs a bit of care, and I think with a bit of help and a bit of money, we could really help get this place more sustainable, so that Guhyaloka could thrive and live on for a long time.
So, despite how wonderful the place is, Guhyaloka has been struggling, and it needs support. The man was told that a fundraising campaign has been launched called Guhyaloka for the Ages, and he resolved that he would do all he could to help it raise the money it needs. Then he heard in his dream, as if people all over the world were repeating the phrase like a chant, Guhyaloka for the Ages. Guhyaloka for the Ages. Guhyaloka for the Ages.
Guhyaloka for the Ages.
Guhyaloka for the Ages.
Guhyaloka for the Ages.
Guhyaloka for the Ages.
Guhyaloka for the Ages.
Guhyaloka for the Ages.
Guhyaloka for the Ages.
Guhyaloka for the Ages.
Guhyaloka for the Ages.
Guhyaloka for the Ages.
Guhyaloka for the Ages. Guhyaloka for the Ages.
Yeah, so a little bit of fun, but getting the message across. This is another little video, and this is just going to show you. So I am going to talk a little bit more now about the detail of what's needed. So overall, the project, we are looking to raise 850,000. That's a big target. It'll be over a number of years. We have 2 or 3 main things that we need to do. We've completed one phase, which is the redevelopment of the Esso huts, putting in new water tanks, solar panels, which I'll show some pictures of. And that's gone really, really well, and that's complete. And then the next phase is a really crucial phase. So at the moment, the kitchen dining block does not meet Spanish legal standards or hygiene standards. We have submitted for planning to the local authority and to the regional authority. There's a number of kind of stages it has to go through. We're at the very final stage. The mood music is very good. We're confident, very confident it will come through. But we're on their radar now, much more, okay? And if they did a spot check today or tomorrow, they could close us down, okay? And it would be a catastrophe if Guhyaloka was closed down, okay? So once this planning comes through, we have to build this new kitchen dining block. And this is a video of this is the current kitchen dining block. So when preceptors arrive, there can be up to about 50 men on site, and this is the facilities for them. So wholly inadequate. Okay. So this is the plans for the new. So at the moment, that's the current kitchen dining block. Most of that is seated outside. The weather has changed in the last 30, 40 years in Guhyaloka. The rainfall over per annum hasn't actually dropped that much over a 30, 40 year period. But what's happening is that there's the spells of warmer weather can be more extreme, and then there can be heavier rain. Yeah, heavier rain. So sitting outside here it can be done a lot still, but we want to be able to accommodate people inside as well. So this is the big kitchen area, and this will be the new dining block. This is outside, and this will all be inside. Yeah. So it'll be more than sufficient. And it's a wonderful design. See if we have, actually maybe I'll show you more here. So at the moment, over there that's the Yeso huts. We'll see some pictures. This is the planned shrine room, beautiful shrine room. That's the current shrine room. That will be converted into bedrooms. And when the kitchen block gets done, this gets converted into bedrooms. This is the mandala huts, and then there's the more bedrooms here in the library there. That's a bit more just of a close-up of the kitchen, dining area inside, and kitchen up there. That's just the elevation outside of the kitchen. That's the shrine room, elevation and view inside. So it'll be an octagonal shape, and there's 52 seats. It'll be heated from a stove in the foyer area, so it'll be the underfloor heating, and then the roof has ventilation so that it's cooler in the summer. So this is the building of the Yeso huts, Indrabodhi, Viryaprabha there. So that you see these sacks, these were just onion sacks Manjuvajra was talking about, just filled with earth. And that's them demolishing those walls. You can see the onion sacks here. Yeah, and then they're putting in proper brick. So they had to scoop them all out and put in what do they call the supports for the roof, and then built up with the brick, and then plastered, paints lovely yellow, and new doors and windows. And this is the new area. So some of these would flood when there was heavy rain. Yeah, so that's all finished now. And that's the view. So this is booking.com. Yeah. Airbnb, booking.com. And they're experimenting with these awnings just to keep the heat out of the huts in the summer months. So that's just from the other side. So total transformation and a huge improvement. And they're heated. Each set of 4 has a stove and that runs piping through the other huts to heat them. So, and in that last phase we've been working on this year, we've invested in new solar panels. These Vajranath has been looking after that. They're top of the range, very effective, and we'll be able to run quite a lot off those. These are the water tanks. They're now buried under the earth, and that's harvesting rainwater out from the roofs of the Yeso huts. So at the moment we're having to drive up tankards. Each I can't remember the numbers that come up, but there's a lot of tankards happen to come up during a year. All the water has to be bought in, so this is going to help us. This will be grey water that we can use. Maitreya Bandhu just talking about, maybe I'll pass.
We've just had the public ordination of 15 new Dharmacharis into the Triratna Buddhist order, and I've been staying in the wonderfully reappointed Yeso huts. I think one of the reasons why they're so wonderful to be in is that these Yeso huts, they just feel so in keeping with the spirit of the place. You know, the spirit of the place is all about these terraces, and the Yeso huts sit in the terrace so beautifully and sort of express the spirit of the place. So when you stay in one now, in the old days, this is the one I was standing in was like really wet. This is the one that there was a rock in the bottom, so if it rained heavily, it would literally have water on the floor. Now it's really lovely, but it doesn't feel like it's lost any of its, I hate that word authenticity, but authenticity, you know, it feels like, I don't know, it just feels like this is Guhyaloka. This is the spirit of the place, yeah? And I'm particularly excited by that, because I think that's why it's so lovely to be in the new Yeso huts, because they're really comfortable on one hand, and you feel like this is so the right place to be. This is what Guhyaloka is. what excites me is the possibility of the whole site being like that. And I know we've got these incredible plans for the whole site to be like that we can build and improve here at Guhyaloka, but not in that sort of plonked on, weirdly idea-based thing, but as almost growing out from the spirit of the place. So we've got so much more we've got planned to do here. There's so much more we can do that not only will make it easier for people to be here, but make it deeper to be here. Feel more that you are in the secret valley, in Guhyaloka, with all its magic and beauty, both animal life, bird life, trees, but it's especially its spiritual value. So I really recommend it.
On that, how much time have I got?
Well, I mean, we're out of time, but we've got...
Oh, we're out of time. Okay, well, I'll pass on that. So that's it. So, so what we need to raise for this phase is 250,000 to complete the kitchen dining block. We have raised about, between pledges and money in the bank, we've raised between 130 and 150,000. So we need to raise another 100,000 by September, October of next year. Okay, and it's really, really crucial we do that. The pledge cards on your seats. If you are in a position to give, I'd really, really strongly encourage you to do that. There's a bowl just at the door. You can drop the cards in. And once that is done, it's going to free up the current kitchen dining block, make that into accommodation. It's going to have a huge effect, hugely positive effect on the valley, and particularly for the ordination retreats. Yeah, accommodating the preceptors when they come in. And then down after that, the next phase will be fundraising for the shrine room. And once we can get the shrine room, it just really opens up what also the valley can offer the community and the order. We can do longer meditation retreats during the winter time because there'll be proper heating. And that's something that the Guhyaloka doesn't really offer at the moment, because it's got either one main ordination retreat from about March, April until July, sometimes one in the autumn, and then the winter months, it's just the climate's too harsh. But with these new buildings, we'll be able to continue using the facilities. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Personally, very grateful to you and Padmasagara and others involved in the campaign to do this, and of course all the builders and so on, because whilst I'll miss out personally on the benefit, on the improvements at Guhyaloka that are being put in place, I can just see how much impact that's going to have on people. Like the picture you showed with the canopy, that canopy was on what was my hut. It wasn't like that in my day. But I think it's, based on my experience there, I think it's going to be so beneficial for more people to be able to go there, to have their preceptors there, and to experience something of the conditions that I and 600 other men have had there. So yeah, just to double encourage filling in the pledge cards, or going to the Guhyaloka for the Ages website and hitting the donate button. Great. So we've got like 15 minutes, but we can be a bit flexible. For any discussion, questions that come up, questions about the problems that are at Guhyaloka now, the plans, more detail on the plans, what the money is being spent on, has been spent on, what happened in the past in various situations maybe, what it's actually like there. Because other people here, I mean, Vimala Bandhu, for example, could tell stories about the cooking, as he cooked there for a while. So there could be other stories that come up as well. So yeah, does anybody have any questions? I'm just going to turn the lights up while you're thinking of asking questions of each other.
But I haven't understood where you shower and go to the loo. So I don't think a building to be called shower block or anything was mentioned. I'm just curious.
There's a. Shall I answer?
Sure.
There's one shower. Sorry, there's 2 showers in one little block, which is quite new. It's sort of at the edge of the retreat centre. But it was served, when I was there last year, it was served by rainwater that was collected in a tank that's already there. So when that water ran out, no more showers. It can be connected up to the mains. By the mains, I mean the other water, the tank of water that's shipped up. It's shipped up, as Jyotika was saying. But of course, that's taking drinking water away. That's using up valuable drinking water that has to be shipped up the valley from an aquifer. So not very environmentally sound at all. Toilets, there's 3 compost toilets, I think 3, 1, 2, 3. And then there's lots of pee pits. Should you move on from there? My job in the work days was to dig out the pee pits. Use your imagination. Yeah.
We discourage showering.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because the water's too expensive, really.
Oh, okay.
It's very difficult to get the water when we ship it in, so
Yeah.
we discourage people from the luxuries of weekly showering.
There's no natural springs.
It's part of letting them be boys.
It is. Yeah.
No. There's no natural springs. I think, not that I've been to a kosher one, but there's nothing in that.
No, there are no natural springs. No. Though at Uttaraloka we do have a well,
Oh, okay.
but it's got limited.
Yeah.
Thank you. Prakash?
Yeah.
Speak up so that we can pick up on the video.
Yeah, so thank you for the presentation. I only caught the latter part of the presentation, so I might be missing this information. But to help me understand the scale, can we talk about the throughput? Throughput is the number of people going through. So what's the throughput at the moment? What is the throughput with this phased plan that you have? How will it increase? What's the throughput planned for the future? And also, what's the demand as well? So, how much demand is there? How much do we need? How much throughput do we need there? What's the throughput at the moment? And what's the future throughput? Throughput sounds very technical, but it just means the number of people going through. Just to help me understand the scale.
Sure. Well, I think at the moment, the problem is that the facilities can't accommodate the throughput, as you say, that's required. And but we're talking about, there's usually about 17, 18 men on the longer ordination course in the springtime, so they get ordained. There's a team then of preceptors who come, so they need to be accommodated. There's the support team. And then every second year or so, there's an autumn 1-month ordination course. That tends to be a bit smaller, so there might be about 10 or 12 men on that. Then there's various working retreats. I don't have figures, but different centres like Cambridge brought 9 men over. I know the LBC do that each year as well. I've heard Sheffield do that. There's 4 solitary venues. They're pretty much nearly always booked up.
Yeah.
And once we can especially get the shrine built, it really opens up what Guhyaloka can offer. Yeah. So we could in the winter time, we could have 1 or 2 month-long meditation retreats for up to 50 men.
Can I add something? When I had my invitation in 2023, and Artipriya told us that, that we're going to be ordained at Pamaloka because there's not space to accommodate preceptors at Guhyaloka, I was little bit disappointed and confused by that. And he said, well, I, Archprior, don't want to say no to someone who's ready for ordination, that they can't go to Guhyaloka next year. So I think as many people who are ready for ordination, who are able to spend 3 months away, are being accommodated, but I think it's really tight, and they had to be pragmatic in my year by ordaining us before we went, so that preceptors didn't have to be accommodated. So it's really high pressure and high impact. If someone's ready for ordination, but they can't go to Guhyaloka because there's not enough space, this for me is partly what this campaign's about.
Thank you.
The support team live in the other parts of the forest. I heard your question, Pavajata. Yeah.
Salamat is an invaluable source of information.
Probably more than I am, yeah.
Do they still use elm rare down at the bottom of the...
Yeah.
Yeah. That's still...
At the moment, 2, maybe 3 people are living in El Morea. One in Banti's bungalow, and the other 3, 4 in huts. Yeah.
Huts outside of the retreat centre, aren't they? They're in the forest.
They're built up on the terraces. Yeah. I started the hut fashion when I was out there. I built the first hut.
Hut fashion.
Yeah.
Just to touch on this question of throughput, I mean, in my day, in 1992, there were 26 of us ordained, and there were only 3 private preceptors on that. 2 of whom were on the team there anyway, so only 1 had to come in. So the big change over the last few years is a lot more private preceptors. Each person getting ordained might have their own personal private preceptor. So we were 26, but the limit nowadays is perhaps 15 or something if you include all the private preceptors. So that's the big shift that's happened.
Good point.
I gathered that the shrine is like one of the next big steps. Just wondering, how has it been decided that the shrine room is a priority over resources that would help the throughput? I'm thinking that maybe there's already a shrine room, but it's too small. Is that right? Okay, so you need the bigger shrine as part of the so-called throughput idea to improve throughput. Okay, because I was thinking the shrine is a big expense, but it's a single space, whereas you could have allocated that money toward resources for accommodation and water and so forth, improving the throughput, and you could, I don't know, build a marquee or something for the shrine instead.
I think it's true to say that actually it is the accommodation that's being built first.
Yeah, it is. But
and the shrine room is actually one of the last things to be done.
Right, so it is already prioritised.
Yeah.
Well, and replacing the shrine room enables the accommodation of the existing shrine. The existing shrine will become accommodation block.
Yeah.
So it has a direct impact on the capacity of people who can sleep there, as it were.
Yeah.
Good plan.
And I can only go back to my experience last year. The shrine room, we were packed in. There wasn't much more space. So if we had more men on the preceptors, it's tricky. But that accommodation is a priority, I think, and that's going to be enabled by the shrine room to be replaced.
Also, I think with the temperatures this summer, it was nearly impossible to meditate in the afternoon. The shrine room packed full of men. It's hitting 40 degrees.
Yeah.
It's like
no showers.
Everyone's stinking.
The thing is, if you go out in the sunshine, you can bathe yourself in sunshine, and that gets rid of a lot of the bacteria and keeps the pong down.
And you can also do water showers hanging a bag from from the trees. So you fill up a plastic bag and it warms up over the day, and then that's a lovely late afternoon hot shower.
Is that rainwater when you say water?
No, actually, that was filled. We used to fill it with the tap, so we are using water.
But the new tanks now.
Yes, the new
show.
tanks I was thinking of, yeah. And also, I suppose, if you are able to run retreats, say in the winter, I don't know, month retreat, for order members or something, they do the Karshavana, isn't it? That's also going to raise some money for Guhyaloka, isn't it? So, I mean, that's all part of the, as well as benefiting people, but you can actually raise some money from that.
Salamati.
Just on the question of water, are you thinking of purifying the rainwater so it can be drunk? Would that?
There isn't plans for that at the moment, but down the line, yes.
That's what we do at Uttaraloka.
Right.
We collect rainwater and our well and some delivery water, and then we pump it into a 1,000-litre tank, and then we just put purification chemicals in that.
And why is that not being thought of at Guhyaloka?
I don't know, you need to ask Angela Davis.
It is.
Is it?
Yeah, there's a 12,000-litre tank there. We run water off of that into a 5,000-litre tank and put chlorine in that.
But with the new tanks, I don't know.
No, that's just going to be for showers.
So
isn't
the
it?
new tanks will just be for showers.
Yeah.
That's my understanding. It will just be grey water.
That's a question, but the current shrine room has a rather beautiful set of doors with a wheel of life and so on that opens. Are you going to be able, or do you know whether they're going to be able to preserve?
I think they are. Yeah.
The current shrine.
Just seeing the drawings.
It's a beautiful.
It'll be in the new shrine room.
It'll be in the new shrine room.
Oh, good. That's amazing. That experience at the beginning when that's revealed. Yeah.
The reason I asked that was because I helped Yashudeva build that.
Oh. She's going in the skip. Great. Come on, Matty.
Yes, as far as the fundraising is concerned, getting the word out more widely, I mean, I wanted to come today because I didn't know if there'd been very much support from the women. And we know we've had a lot of support for the Triratna Unlimited project. Thank you, everybody who's been involved in that. So I just wondered if you've got any plans to publicise the campaign more widely to, particularly perhaps among the women, or what you're.
Well, we're doing general fundraisers, and I mean it is getting out there with a social media presence, and we've written to all the chairs and the different centres, so it is getting out there. Takes time, but it is getting out there, and I guess it will be up to the women themselves. And yes, that's the feedback we've got, that a lot of the women are very appreciative of the men for supporting the Triratna Unlimited campaign, and we've already had some donations from women on the back of that saying thanks.
So is there going to be an appeal at the upcoming area Order weekend? Good.
And there was a presentation at Pavloka at least twice that I'm aware of.
That's right.
Obviously that's not women, but there's all sorts of things I've been aware of.
And at the ECA.
The ECA, yeah. European Chairs Assembly.
Yeah.
Anything else? Or we can continue talking over our...
I was just wondering how long would cooking be out of action when you actually do the renovation of the kitchen area? Is that going to be really...
Oh, well, it's a whole new building. So the cooking shouldn't be out of action at all. We'll just transfer once the new kitchen is up and running, and then the old kitchen gets closed down and converted into accommodation.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be the same building, but different.
No. It's in a different location. It's also away from the road, as will the new shrine room be way back from the road. So it's a better location.
The position of the new shrine room is overlooking the valley, isn't it? Towards you see the lights. Matthew smiling. The lights of Benidorm. Is it Benidorm?
No, Alicante.
Alicante. Sorry. Late at night, you see the twinkling lights in very far away in a very different world. that we used to go and look at every night after puja. And that's where, so we'd walk down there from the shrine room, but this time the shrine room would be able to look out onto samsara from our elevated mental states.
And
whatever.
Road, by the way, means dirt track that people walk up.
It's not a motorway.
There's only one car that goes up there. So, other than our own cars.
Quite a few cyclists go past, don't they?
Oh, yeah. Maybe, yeah.
Say quite a few. On Saturday you get two or three. It's such a wonderful place. And I just want to close actually by thanking people for making this possible. And of course the video will be go much wider than just the 23 of us that were here. But I'm so grateful for everyone coming. I'm particularly grateful to Manjuvajra and Jyotika and Ted and Matthew and Vardaka, who was my partner in crime with this, and Damien for filming and photographing the event, and Sarvajit for helping with all sorts of other things. I've forgotten anyone? No. So thank you to everyone for making this possible, and
thank you.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's your lot.
Pledge cards in the bowl by the door if you are able to. Please.
Shall we put the chairs back?